Good evening and welcome to Thursdays with NAMI. My name is Peg Morrison and I am the Director of Programs with the National Alliance on Mental Illness of North Carolina. Thursdays with NAMI is our way of pulling people together and building community because let's face it, we all need more of that today. Tonight's guest is my esteemed colleague, Helpline Manager Virginia Rodillas. Virginia knows as much as anyone about mental health resources. She has information at her fingertips that can help you navigate care for yourself or a loved one. If you're with us online, you'll see our helpline information in the chat box. If you're on the phone, grab a pen because here it comes. That number is 1-800-451-9682. And we are open on the helpline from 8:30 to 5 on weekdays. So you're not writing it down for now, you're keeping that for another day. Again, the number is 1-800-451-9682. The first half of our show, as always, will be a conversation with our guest. At around 7:45, we'll show our video of the week, and then we'll spend some time answering questions. Moving right along, Thursdays with NAMI is recorded, so if you have friends who couldn't be here tonight, let them know NAMI North Carolina believes in second chances. They can check out tonight's program on our YouTube channel. It will be downloaded within a few days. Now, a word from our sponsors. Funding for Thursdays with NAMI comes in part from the North Carolina Division on Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Use Services through the Federal Community Mental Health Services Block Grant. The block grant comes from the U.S. Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. As always, we very much appreciate their support. All righty, now it's my pleasure to introduce again my colleague Virginia Rodillas. Virginia is a North Carolina native. She grew up on a small farm in the eastern part of the state. She has a bachelor's in psychology from NC State University and a master's in family and consumer sciences from UNC Greensboro, where her concentration was human development across the lifespan. Virginia is a certified family life educator. Perfect fit for the role she's in. Before joining NAMI NC, she managed the helpline for NAMI Wake County for 5 years. She's worked here at the state office for 2.5 years. As a family member of a loved one with mental illness, she has lots of lived experience. Virginia is passionate about helping others find support and learn that they are not alone. All right, Virginia, how are you doing tonight?
Times are tough, and just like many other families, this has really hit our family pretty hard. We're doing okay, trying to adjust to a new normal. We know it's going to be a new normal. Would like to get back to a normal schedule to some degree. Just really trying to take it day by day and stay on our own schedule here as far as getting up at the same time, eating at the same time, and just trying to have a sense of normal. Trying to call family members and friends, say hello. It's nice to talk to people. That's been really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're someone I think of as a NAMI person. You have a NAMI story, as am I, and as do I. And by that I mean it's not just another good cause for you, it has a personal effect. So in a nutshell, could you tell us your NAMI story?
Sure. So I have close family members that have struggled with serious mental illness, addiction, and even suicide attempts. When I was growing up, I felt really alone. I felt that surely none of my peers or classmates were experiencing these same things in their homes. Particularly like 3rd, 4th grade, I just remember looking around and feeling like so alone. And that was just a really bad feeling. We know how strong stigma can be. And unfortunately, my loved ones were really impacted by stigma and never got the help that they needed when they needed it. So I had to grow up really quickly and depend on myself for a lot at an early age. When I became a mother and a grown-up, I actually stopped at an awareness event out of curiosity, a NAMI awareness event, and joined. This was in 2008. So I was able to meet other family members and make a connection, and that was really nice and really comforting. And it sort of inspired me to want to help others find their NAMI family. And that's really it in a nutshell. So
It's amazing how many people actually feel alone. It's amazing how many children feel that way. And I know that society is changing. We've got programs, and I think there are different opportunities where kids are given permission to talk about what's going on with them. But I think traditionally there are just so many of us who felt alone. And I look back and think, why, why couldn't there be some way to bridge that experience so that we realized everyone felt alone, or at least a really substantial minority? Yeah,
yeah,
that's an amazing thing.
because although I was feeling that way, we know how many people are really affected by mental illness. We know like 1 in 5 people. It affects us all, but it's hard to realize that sometimes.
It is. Yeah, I turned 52 recently, and I feel like it's just taken me this long to get super comfortable in my own skin. It just is quite a journey in a lot of ways. Anyways, getting back to our questions. So since January of this year, you've handled around 1,000 contacts, mostly phone calls, but not all, through the helpline. Tell us about the trends you're seeing there.
Yeah, unfortunately, the COVID-19 crisis, it's been we've had a lot of calls focused on that recently. The trends that I'm hearing now are really high anxiety around this pandemic, around the unknowns of when will this end? When will school start back? When will things get back to normal? Um, I hear people that are telling me they've been laid off. They don't know how they're going to pay for their medications. Benefits have changed with unemployment and so forth. So lots of stress and anxiety around that. Also, calls from people who feel very depressed and isolated and alone. Um, and worst of all, we've had an uptick in some suicidal callers. So that's been a real concern recently, and that's what we're hearing.
Yeah. There is so much uncertainty. I have a friend who makes an analogy with having your flight delayed at the airport. He says you're sitting in the airport and you keep getting a series of announcements. Well, the flight's been delayed 30 minutes. Well, it's now a half hour, another half hour, just another 20 minutes. So 6 hours later, you're thinking, if I had known up front what this would look like, I might have made another choice. But you just don't know. And that's what's so frustrating. And it's so hard to plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I understand that. And keep calling the helpline. Virginia is there for you. And we've got, of course, Gail, who you met just earlier, is also helping out a little bit on the helpline. And NAMI North Carolina is definitely here for you. All right. So you've worked, as we mentioned, as a helpline manager for 7.5 years between the local and the state offices. What long-term trends have you seen?
Yes. Yeah. So I was with NAMI Wake County for about 5 years. I did a lot of things there, including Helpline. Um, Long term and the real common things that I've heard over the years: housing, need for affordable, safe housing, and community supports. There's lots of calls that come in from people who don't know how to find a therapist with or without insurance. So we're able to give them some options for that. And the other really most common call is a family member that wants a loved one to get help, to get treatment. They recognize that their loved one may be suffering and not making the best choices, and this loved one may not want any treatment. So, I'll try to offer that warm support and listen and really let callers know what they can do in those situations. That is definitely a long-term trend that I've seen over the years.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure it's frustrating because sometimes people call and, they want housing or they want some kind of support that just isn't available. Our safety net is not plush. It's pretty thin. So
And it's we all know, you can't like force someone to do something all the time. So I try to let callers know that NAMI has supports for family members too. Um, so that's one thing that I hear a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. That segues into our next question. People may not be aware of the emotional stamina it actually takes to do your job. You never know who's calling, what's coming. It could be someone who's in a space where they're suicidal, angry at the system, or someone who wants housing, as I mentioned, some service that's really hard to come by that usually involves a long wait. How do you care for yourself emotionally during the day?
I start with a big cup of coffee. I really do. But seriously, that is exactly right. My day, my workflow can be really unpredictable, and the intensity of the calls are unpredictable. In addition to the helpline, I'm the point of contact for NAMI on campus, and I help our team out with other projects and sit on other work groups. So it's a lot going on, and stress management is crucial. I try to take a little walk or do a little stretch, deep breaths, staying hydrated. That's big for me. I feel so much better when I'm mindfully staying hydrated. And if I have a really tough call, I debrief with my coworkers. I try to make a phone call or text a friend in the evening to decompress, watch a little funny show or something, to just sort of unwind after it all.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are good tips for any of us to follow. I know before it started raining endlessly, this past weekend, I finally got on my bike the first time this year. Some of you know I broke my leg in November, so it really was a long time since I've had a vigorous workout, and that really felt very good. I actually slept well that night. Yeah, so a lot of good tips for self-care.
Yes.
Um, Now, a lot of folks in our virtual studio audiences are caretakers for folks who live with mental illness. Any thoughts just for them?
Yes. We as caretakers can get so into the motion of doing things that we forget to care for ourselves. And we really have to remember self-care, because if we burn out, if we're not at our best level, we cannot care for our loved ones in the way that we really want to. And I think when we hear self-care, it it doesn't have to be a massage or a spa day. Self-care can be a little bit of time alone. Self-care can be saying no to some things. Self-care, can be whatever it is for you to allow yourself to have the time to restore, and give them a little compassion for yourself. So as a caregiver, that is so important if you want to continue to be able to take care of your family like you want to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've heard people say that no is a complete sentence. And it could be hard to stop there, but it's true. Sometimes the answer is just no.
And it's so hard to say that sometimes. It took me a very long time to get to that point, but it's about preserving your own energy, and then directing your energy into what you want to do. You want to care for your loved one, you want to support your family or friend. So I'm very guilty of this, of just getting into the motion and feeling accomplished when maybe I have cared for someone in a way, but I don't want to burn out either. So you have to remember to care for yourself. And NAMI support groups are really great too, to connect with other caregivers.
Yeah, I will definitely second that. I've gotten a lot out of them, whether I'm there as a participant or a facilitator. Either way, I really get a lot, and I think most people do. Another way of saying no that I've heard that I like is I am not able to do that. That although we don't owe people excuses, sometimes we just really want to take responsibility, but we have to remind ourselves and others, I'm not able to do that. I'm one person. And as much as I want to say yes and be helpful and be part of the solution, we can't do it all.
That's so true. So
Yeah.
true.
All right. So moving right along, any thoughts for parents with young children?
Well, this can be a really especially hard time right now for parents of young children. You know, their schedule has changed abruptly. The Center of Disease Control and CDC and PBS actually put out some tips around talking to kids about the COVID-19 crisis. And, you know, a couple highlights, and this, I think, crosses many different situations, but to have honest conversations with our children, honest, age appropriate conversations, um, let the children lead the conversation if possible. And it's important that children have a feeling of control over a situation. So, with regards to our pandemic now, we can teach children how to wash hands appropriately, how to do the vampire cough in the elbow, to and so that they're not spreading germs. But overall, we want children to feel safe.
I have not heard the vampire cough. That is adorable. That,
Yes, yes,
like you're coughing into your cape.
yeah.
That was a very good demonstration. Thank you for that.
Everybody practice the vampire.
That's right. All right. So does this era remind you of anything from the past, either personally or globally?
Yeah, I love this question. So for me in my lifetime, this reminds me of the 9/11 attacks. During that time, I was going to be taking a job in New York City and was making plans to do that. So when 9/11 happened, everything came to the, abrupt stop. Like I feel sort of now. Also, there were a lot of concerns about the economy crashing and all this fear about flying and more terrorist attacks. So that's very similar to what I feel and see now, with huge change in the normal, concerns of the economy, and a lot of public fear. I will say that I believe Americans are resilient, that we can grow from this, just like after 9/11, and really emerge stronger than before.
That's a good comparison. I remember also after 9/11, every time a plane would fly overhead, it would really rattle me. It was like a little mini trigger. And it took a long time to just feel like life was normal and relatively safe again. So
Definitely. Sometimes I would even, in the past few years where we would be flying or something, and it would cross my mind like, we just do it like second nature now. But right after 9/11, it was like people say, I'm never going to fly again, or I can't believe this could happen. So things can get better, and I believe that they will.
yeah, I'm sure they will in this case. That's my gut anyways. I tend to go with my intuition and my gut instinct. Some of the fallout of 911 is still with us. It used to be a pretty simple thing to go to the airport and get on your plane. They didn't check your luggage, that you didn't take off your shoes. It was just much simpler, as I recall. So it'll be interesting to see how this unfolds, how
Yes.
careful people will be moving forward, and all the different industries, how they'll redevelop, how people will communicate differently. One
Right.
example, yeah, it's just the possibilities are endless, I guess. And there could be some positive trends moving forward. Obviously, there's a lot of difficulty with the economy and people feeling isolated. But I think in my case, for example, my siblings, I'm the youngest of 6, and my siblings are now communicating via Zoom once a week. So we never did that before, ever.
Yeah.
It's just like random conversations here and there. So that's a pretty big thing. That's significant.
Absolutely. And, we know the telehealth options now, they may develop further, and we can have more people that maybe have had transportation issues or in rural North Carolina able to access services better than before. So there's some silver linings.
Absolutely. And as we move forward, I'm sure the technology will get better. Zoom, for example, has absorbed the bulk of all these new online meetings and interactions. And I've read many times that the audio is the area where it can get a little quirky. So I'm not surprised that we've had some audio challenges. I want to thank our virtual studio audience again for hanging in there. And for those of you who came back last week, we had quite a few challenges. So I'm giving a cyber hug to everyone who came back and is hanging out with us again. So back to our conversation, Virginia, what gives you hope in this time?
When I see the way people have really come together, you see people who are struggling themselves and they are still doing acts of kindness for others. That makes me so hopeful. It just really shows the connection and the good in people. And just, knowing that we're all in this together, we're all impacted by this, and we're all working to get through this together, really makes me hopeful.
Absolutely.
And I really love to see my flowers bloom, and I love nature. That is also just a beautiful thing that gives me so much comfort and hope that each day is a new chance to do something different if you need to do something different, or try something new, and it's very, very hopeful.
Yeah, I love the fact that you brought up nature. I am the same way. And partly as a result of this stay-at-home era we're in, I've been getting into birding more, and I understand that's common. I am an Audubon supporter, and they have taken a really interesting approach to supporting people through this, that this is a good time to go birding. You can go out by yourself. You can walk the trail on your own and check off your list of birds that you have never seen before. I ended up buying a feeder, as you may know, for the office and home. And I've got my little chart of what, the bird pictures and the bird names. So I'm developing a new area of life in which I can be a geek. And that's pretty exciting.
I love birds. I love them. They're just so curious and beautiful. I have my little container garden going on, so when I see a tomato, I'm like, go. Yeah, you're right. We're noticing things we may not have noticed before in the hustle and bustle, and it's nice.
Yeah. So there are some silver linings, not to minimize the difficulty, because I know it's a burden for many, many people.
Yeah.
So I would never discount that. But
I've had people ask me, well, is this behavior normal? Or, what do you think this is? Or this sounds like blank disorder, right? I would not answer or give any type of medical or clinical advice that would not be appropriate in this role. I would direct the caller to a resource that could answer that question, whether it is a list of providers in their area code, their local LME, local management entity. I know we don't like acronyms. Or, those are two options. Also, I'm able to send literature to them, brochures about specific illnesses if they would like. NAMI.org has a lot of material, reading material. They could learn about whatever they were interested in by searching on the national website. And of course, there's always the 741-741. People can text the word NAMI to that number, 741-741, any time of the day or nights, 365 days a year, to be connected to a counselor. So that's another option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the only question in our Q&A. Let's see what we've got in our chat box. All right, lots of information about the status of our sound. Thanks for the 741 number, great to know. Thank you, Diane. NAMI.org is a good resource. So we've got some good comments in the chat box. And just for people who might not know what an LME is, the local management entity, an example would be Alliance or Cardinal or Partners, just in case, to help you connect that to what you know in your life. So
Yeah. Um, so I know no one asked this, but I'll just add, um, I get a lot of calls from people who aren't in North Carolina, and maybe they have a loved one here, or maybe they're thinking of moving here, and they just simply have no idea, like where to turn, where to go for support, where walk-in clinics are, where their local NAMI is. So I always try to let our callers know about their local NAMIs, because you all that are part of our affiliates really are the ones boots on the ground and know those communities. So that's a big part of Helpline too, is directing people to their local NAMI.
Yeah, and that segues nicely into the next question. Do you also refer people to the local affiliate and or peer center, I guess, to connect?
Yes, always. Even a lot of times I'll get a call and someone says, my son just needs housing. He has schizophrenia. He needs housing. Who do I call? And so I give them that type of information. And then I say, and we have support groups and free evidence-based education classes offered through our local affiliates. What county are you in? Would you like that information? So that is always, I try to weave that in because it's so important. Like I said earlier on, it's really fulfilling to me to help people find their NAMI family.
Absolutely. And I know sometimes we even receive calls from people who are in a facility, and my heart always breaks a little bit when we get one of those calls.
Mhm.
That just, but it does speak to how much people trust NAMI.
Yes, those are hard, and sometimes those calls come in after hours, and we try to get back to individuals who may be inpatient. It's hard to do. There's privacy around people when they're hospitalized, privacy laws. But I do have good relationships with patient advocates at hospitals. I can let them know about calls that come in when someone may have asked for some really specific support and from where they are at. But yeah, that's why it's really important that we have our helpline information, brochures at the hospitals, and walk-in clinics, any place like that, so that people do know where to go and how to find us.
Right. And I want to acknowledge Bob Creighton. Bob, it's good to see you again. I'm really glad you're here with us tonight.
Yeah,
And you've got a mention of the Veterans Crisis text line in the chat box,
yeah.
838255. So thank you for that, Bob.
We have that. We do have resources for veterans in our helpline manual. We get calls from folks that are looking for some specific support for veterans. So we definitely have resources as well for them.
Yeah, Virginia has this Bible-sized resource that, like, every time she learns about something new that's available in North Carolina, she adds it to her helpline manual. And it is the biggest thing I've ever seen, because you're very thorough, and that's awesome.
Well, we are working on making it a little more user friendly. But yeah, there's a lot of great resources, and it's really hard when someone reaches out and takes that step. Um, and you don't have a wonderful answer for them. So anything that I can offer, any option that I can give someone, um, I think it could be helpful. And so I try to keep a lot of resources on hand. This is true.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That's a wonderful thing. So, how about volunteers? Next question. Do you ever use volunteers?
Yes, yes. I love volunteers. I love helpline volunteers. I have one that's really active right now. She helps me remotely. She helps with some of the emails that we've been getting. We've actually been getting a lot of helpline emails recently. So it's wonderful, because back to the previous question, with my workflow being unpredictable, I don't want people to wait. I don't want people to have to leave a message, because frankly, you might not want to leave a message. You want someone to pick up your call and respond right away. And I really like to get back to people quickly or take the contact live. So sometimes I can't do that all alone. We get a lot of calls and emails. So volunteers, I love them. They're everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've had good luck with volunteers here. We've had people who've done an astounding job. I also want to share, I've worked for another organization similar to this one where we had a helpline, but rather than having a designated staff who was perfectly qualified and has a very lovely, friendly, warm, and welcoming voice like you do, we shared it. So each, we would each pick up the calls at different times as we were available. And I think, it was a good service, but I don't think we had the continuity or the familiarity with resources. Having a designated staff who really has become a total expert in this, I really think that the way it's set up and the fact that it's you in that role, it serves people very, very well. So that's just my feedback.
Well, thank you. I hear people, they like my accent. What are they talking about? What accent? But yeah, it is a very fulfilling role.
Good. New question. Also during this pandemic, visitation has been restricted to nursing homes and SNFs. I'm not sure what that stands for. State nursing facilities?
I think that's state nursing facility.
Anyways, and recently being in an SNF for rehab, I saw firsthand people feeling alone during their stay at the nursing home. That would be so difficult.
It absolutely. I've had people who are also angry. They have a parent or grandparent in a nursing home, and they're extremely concerned and worried. So, that's part of the helpline is being able to let people express how they're feeling and offer some warm support and a listening ear, because that's also very valuable, and giving whatever resources that I can.
So clarification from the chat box that stands for skilled nursing facility. So thank you, everyone. It's good to have an audience that knows as much or more than you do.
Yeah, love it. I'm going to go update that helpline manual.
That's right. See how quick she is? All right. Any other Q&A? Any other questions, I should say? Aw, we're sure Gary will agree. What is there not to love about Virginia? Aw.
Thank you.
Very
Don't ask my kids or husband that.
Aw. Well, this is a pro. That was funny. So yeah, a lot of accolades for Virginia. This is lovely. Comment from Diane Crisanda. I'm so thankful for Virginia's help when helping family member, loved one in western part of the state being diverted and up toward Raleigh. She provided me with several resources and saved me so much time. Absolutely.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it. And, like Diane mentioned, our helpline is statewide. We get calls from almost all of the 100 counties, and from people outside of North Carolina. So I'm here and I'm happy to do it. And one thing that I try to do as well is, after helping someone, to say, if you take these resources and you try them and you make some calls, if you get some information that's confusing or you need to call me back, please do. Like, I would love to hear from you again. I would love to know if those were helpful. The last thing that I want to do is send someone on a wild goose chase or give them any type of wrong information that's going to complicate or make a stressful situation any worse. So I love the feedback when I am able to help someone. I do encourage them to give me a call back.
Okay, and a question that's come up now is, how can I contact Virginia?
Okay, well, our helpline number is 1-800-451-9682. You can call our office number, 919-788-0801, and hit number 1. Come straight to me. You can email helpline@namiNC.org or email me directly at vhrodillas@namiNC.org.
Right. And I know we sort of got this from the chat box, but I know sometimes someone will write to you and say, oh, I called the helpline 2 months ago and it was so great and this is what's happened. Do you have anything like an example of that that comes to mind?
Um, and like an example of someone that was able to call and get the assistance that they needed. Is that?
Yeah, who came back and said, thank you so much. It made a difference for me.
Yeah. Well, I have to be honest and say that's rare. You know, I don't get that follow up as much as I wish I would. Most of the time, it's because I gave information about some of our programming, like Family to Family. I've had people call back and say that that course was life changing, life saving, and that's just like music to my ears. It makes all the stress and just all worth it. There's been a couple times that I've had parents call me that have children in high school or middle school that have mental health condition, and were not getting the supports they needed at school, and just like a lot of other problems with that. So I was able to get them in touch with places like Disability Rights in North Carolina, and point them to the resources that actually got them over that hump. So that is definitely an example of parents who just had no idea, like, what do we do? And you have to realize they're dealing with these unique stressors and trying to navigate a problem. So
Yeah,
sometimes they just don't know, and being able to unlock some information for them, it feels really good.
that's wonderful. I'm glad you do get that feedback, at least from time to time. So, next question, how does being the family member of a person with a serious mental illness help your role? Does it ever make it a challenge?
Yes, it does. Sometimes I'll get a call from someone and I can relate to like everything they're saying, but I don't want to put any of my bias on it. And something that might work in my family or work for my loved one certainly may not be what they need. So sometimes I wanted to say, "Oh, I know. Well, let me tell you what. I try to keep it non-biased." And stay focused on what is the best resources for them. So, but I think having a loved one, and having this lived experience, I can relate to the lonely feelings that people have. I understand the level of strength and courage it takes to reach out for help, and it makes me very sensitive to callers, and just to be able to care for them or interact with them in a very mindful, sensitive way, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point. Sometimes you have to try and separate your professional response from that feeling like, oh my gosh, that resonates so much. So yeah, you
Yeah.
probably want to start a whole conversation and you share and they share.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And I do. And you have. I just. I want to make sure that nothing that I would do like that would complicate anything for them. So that's where the challenge comes in.
Okay, comment. I'm sure Virginia will agree that MHFA for adults and youth, that mental health first aid for adults and youth, is a perfect complement to our NAMI NC helpline.
I do. I think that's a wonderful program. I think that people who work in the mental health field, because this is frontline to me, and anybody working in the mental health field, and working with any type of vulnerable population, the more tools you can put in your tool belt, the better. And the mental health first aid absolutely is a great program. And I believe their website is mentalhealthfirstaid.org, but might be.com, but you can find where they're offering that on that website if you're ever interested in taking it.
Yeah, that's an excellent resource. So one of our NAMI parents is looking for help in the form of housing for a child who is turning 18.
Okay, so the child So once the child becomes 18, they will be able to go ahead and apply for housing programs. There So we probably would have to have a little back and forth about this for me to give you the best resources. Feel free to contact me directly. I will just say, generally speaking, the LMEs, the local management entities, they do have a housing specialist, or sometimes in-reach specialist. And sometimes I've just called and they just say, let me just transfer you to the person who does housing. So that is a place to start. Based on your county, we could get you connected to that person. That is one option, but I'd be happy to talk to you in detail about your situation and make sure that is the best resource for you.
All right, that sounds good. Sometimes you just need to really talk and get the whole backstory and figure out where they are, what exactly they need. Oh, okay. The child is aging out of a state hospital, cannot live at home without 24-hour supervision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the same with the housing specialist that I mentioned. They have the database and the information for many different housing options: group homes, assisted living, independent with community supports. So that still is probably going to be your best, the best resource if you haven't already checked with them. But that does sound like that's going to be the best. If you would like to share what county you're in, I could tell you which LME you should contact, but just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I think you have spoken to the options. Another follow-up comment. And yes, you can speak to the family privately. They just need to call the helpline.
Sure, definitely.
Okay. All right, and it says Peg Morrison has put mental health first aid into the chat box. That's actually Gail, because we switched places. Oh, the fun we have on Thursdays with NAMI. So that is in fact mentalhealthfirstaid.org, as Virginia said. All right. So we've got 7 more minutes, and we're happy to take more questions. We could also, sing a song or tell some jokes if you'd like. I know there's just an awful lot that goes on with people, a lot of reasons that they would call in. Here's a good question. How do you combat burnout, since this is a high stress job?
Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes I need reminders, like from my coworkers and my boss, Gary. I try to check in with myself daily and sort of see how I'm feeling. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I want to make sure that I am healthy and I am not burnout, because I do want to be there for my family at the end of the day. And so again, I try to do stretching, I try to breathe, I try to do self-care. I try to really stop when the end of the day comes and not like do a few more things or update a helpline manual or anything tonight. I try to not do those things, but it's hard because, like Peg used the term NAMI person. I mean, when you're a NAMI person, it's part of who you are, and it is a passion. And so it's a balancing act. So I just do the best I can each day.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Gary encourages you to take care of yourself. And that's a good reminder for everyone who's a supervisor. Gary is really good at that, encouraging self-care and allowing us the flexibility in whatever we need to do to make it happen, not just saying it, but creating a space where we're able to do that. So whoever's in your life, if you know they have a tendency to push too hard or to always say yes, let's all remember to do what we can to say, hey, I noticed that you are just really burning the candle at both ends, and I really hope that you can take some time just for you.
Yeah, I mean, if I notice that I'm really starting to be really irritated easily, or just losing my cool, or just sluggish, I say, you know what, I need to take a minute, I need to regroup. And it's a daily thing. It's just something I manage.
Right. This is a really fun question to both of us. What is the most uplifting resource or book you have read lately that has helped or inspired you that you recommend?
Mm. Would you like to go first, Beck?
Sure. You know, I got this from my family Zoom meetings that I mentioned. I'm the youngest of six. We're now Zooming once a week, which we never did for decades, literally. Um, and uh, and so my brother turned me on to this author named Louise Penny. She's a Canadian author, and she writes about this fictional town in the Quebec, Montreal area um, called Three Pines. And they're murder mysteries, but they're not like the dark criminal minds, you know, let's look deeply into the mind of a torturer kind of story. It's more like Murder, She Wrote, you know, it's like cute
Yeah.
stories with really nice characters. And she's such a good writer. I could just like read a paragraph about the table settings at the dining room table of one of the characters, and the way she presents it and describes it is beautiful and engaging. And as someone who does like to do personal creative writing, I'm just inspired on a lot of levels. She also has a message of goodness, like giving people a chance and communicating in a fair way and creating safe spaces. Not that she would use those words, but that comes through in her story. Like you can tell her mission is to focus on the good in people and to focus on the good in the world. And so, yeah, I just love her. And I'm so excited too, because it's a series of 16 books and I'm only on one. Armand Gamache. It's a French detective, kind of like Hercule Poirot, if you're an Agatha Christie fan. Anyways, Louise Penny is the author's name.
Well, I'm of the old school too, Peg, of a good old fashioned book. No Kindles. I mean, I like the book. I'm reading The Soul of an Octopus right now. It's very scientific, but it's all about. I'm not that far into it, but it is about a woman who's like has a relationship with an octopus. Like she goes to the zoo, goes to the sanctuary, sees the octopus, and it's just very descriptive, like you said. And I love to read it. But aside from that, I really like to bake and cook. So I'll get a recipe, a new recipe to try. That seems to refresh me. And then, you know, let the family do a taste test. So that's a good time for me.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. So, and we also love our nature and our birds.
Mm-hmm.
All
Yeah.
right, well, it's 2 minutes before 8 o'clock. Virtual studio audience, you've been lovely and asked some wonderful questions. We're happy to stay until 8:30. Sometimes the natural flow of the program keeps us going till 8, sometimes all the way to 8:30. It really is up to you. But, you know, tick tock, tick tock. We don't have any questions right now. All righty. I think that it feels like we are ready to close. And again, I want to thank everyone for being here. It's been a wonderful experience to share with you all. Thank you, Virginia, for sharing part of your story with us and for sharing all the wonderful tips. And another program has flown by. But we're now at a close, and I want to thank everyone. We do have some exciting programs coming up. Next week, we're going to be talking about the art of recovery, talking about some folks who live with mental health challenges, who do visual arts or some kind of art, and they see that as a coping tool. So creativity is a coping tool. The following Thursday, the first Thursday in June, we'll have Shireen Caraco, who founded the Promise Resource Network in Charlotte. That is North Carolina's first peer-based center. So that's a pretty exciting leadership person that we're going to have. Another speaker in June will be Gabe Howard. We've had some requests for a bipolar speaker. Gabe is a really, really talented speaker, presenter, all-around guru, and he shares his story very candidly about bipolar disorder. That's what comes to mind for me. Oh, Triangle Springs will be the last Thursday in June. We'll have 2 clinicians who are skilled in dual diagnosis, and so that you might otherwise have to pay for. Thursday will be Minority Mental Health Month, and we're going to have some wonderful programming then as well. So thanks for being here, everyone, and I think it's time for us to sign off now. Thanks again, Virginia, and thanks again, Gail and Gary.